Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. Now, you might have guessed this already from the thumbnail, this is not a Necrons video, this is in fact a Tyranids video. If you weren't aware, we are going to be merging the channels. Now for the Necron players out there, that doesn't mean we're not doing Necron content anymore, because that is still my main faction, so don't worry too much about that. There's still going to be plenty of Necron content here on the channel, tactical stuff, and we're going to be starting some vlog battle reports as well, so stay tuned for that, as well as all the standard stuff as well, and standard battle reports. But today we're going to be focusing on a Tyranids unit, and we're still doing our rate it or hate it. Now if you are a Tyranids subscriber from the Tyranids channel and you've jumped over, welcome to the main channel. If you guys weren't aware what we're doing with the rate it or hate it videos, basically I pick a unit, I go through the data card, I then go through my tactics, my playstyle, how I use that specific unit, the key detachment and whatnot, and then I do a bit of a comparison to other units that you could potentially take, and at the end of the video I decide whether I rate it or I hate it. There's no in between, I've got to choose one or the other, and it's quite cutthroat. So today we are going to be talking about the Tyranids Swarmlord. So let's break into this data card then. For the Tyranids Swarmlord, we were on a 60 mil base, we are 270 points, so that's quite expensive for a model, and the keywords, there's quite a lot. It's a monster, a character, an epic hero, so you won't be using any enhancements because of the epic hero keyword, Psyker, Great Devourer, Synapse, which is important, Hive Tyrant, and Swarmlord. So that's the keywords dealt with. Let's move straight into these statistics then. One of the most important parts to the data card. So we've got a movement of 8 inches, quite fast, nice. Toughness 10, which is also fairly tough. It's not the toughest, but it's pretty decent, especially 10th edition, now that monsters and vehicles have gone up in toughness. It's good. The save is a 2+ armor save, as well as a 4+ invulnerable save, which is as good as it gets, realistically, unless there's very the rare situations where you get those 3+ invulnerable saves. I don't know if there's any this edition, are there? Probably is. Not off the top of my head. 10 wounds, slightly light for 270 points rather. That's 27 points of wound if you like. Leadership 7+, and the OC is only 3. I think that could have been bumped up a little bit, especially at 270 points, but that is what that is. So let's move down into the weaponry then. Of course there's no war gear options, it is what you get. It is what you get because it's an epic hero. You never really get to select different things with epic heroes. So he does have a ranged weapon as well as a melee weapon. The ranged weapon is Synaptic Pulse. So Synaptic Pulse is a psychic weapon, as well as a torrent, so it will automatically hit. Nice. 18-inch range, which is perfect because, well, you want to get into engagement range anyway, so you're going to get close and personal. 18-inch range is fine. The attacks is D6 plus 3, so what's that, an average of like 6 or 7 as an average, but you automatically hit him with this weapon, don't forget. So there's no rolling to hit, you've just done it already. Strength 5, -1 AP, 2 damage. It's quite light on the strength department, but realistically it's going for your Space Marine kind of models. Standard intercessors that are only toughness 4, you're wounding them on 3s. -1 AP gives them half a chance of making a save, and 2 damage is all you really need to take those models off the table. So that's the ranged weapon. Mainly it's about the melee though. So let's get into the melee side. We've got the Bone Sabers, that's the big boy sabers that this thing carries. Probably the model that actually attracted me to Tyranids at the very, very start was the Swarmlord, and it was for those Bone Sabers. They are very cool. Now they are twin linked, so we're going to get to re-roll all the moon rolls, which is lovely. It's got 8 attacks with the Bone Sabers, hitting on 2s, so you're likely going to get, 6, 7. I mean, I don't know the averages off the top of my head, but you should be getting about that. Hitting on 2, strength is 9. You guys probably know how I feel already about the Tyranid Codex in general, about strength 9, because of all the Christmas videos we did, but the tipping point for Tyranids in terms of the Codex is kind of strength 9. There are a couple of units like Zoanthropes, the Tyrannofex as an example, that do go beyond, but everything seems to stop at strength 9, when I think the Swarmlord, the Hive Tyrants, they should be going to sort of strength 11 in my opinion, but it's strength 9, re-rolling, fine. It's -2 AP, 3 damage. The damage is a nice flat damage, there's no D6 roll or anything like that. It's nice. Is it going to be busting up a vehicle? Not really, because then those vehicles are sort of like toughness 10 now. I mean, look at the Swarmlord statistics. The toughness is 10. So if you're going up against monsters and vehicles, you're likely going to need 5s to wound still, even though you are re-rolling. So they're not the target. They're not really the target, although they should kind of be. So they're not the target. That means you've got to go down a peg. The lighter vehicles, the smaller kind of monsters, if you can call them small monsters, and then you've got the things that have got a lot of wounds that are possibly beasts, mounted, and elite infantry, I suppose. It'll do damage and do work on standard infantry as well, of course, but you'll probably overkill there. Strength 9, yep, it's wounded on 2s against toughness 4. It's overkill, you only need strength 8 really, but that is the weapon. Now moving over to the right hand side of the data card, we've got the abilities. We've got Deadly Demise D3, so if he does go bang, that's going to be a 6-inch aura for mortal wounds, D3 mortal wounds. He's also a leader. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but he can be leading a unit of Tyrant Guard, so it can be attached to those units with that unit, which is cool. It's an option. The faction abilities, you've got Shadow in the Warp, so that's a once per battle usage to basically force Battle Shock, and you can do that in either player's command phase, and you're forcing Battle Shock, which could potentially do a bit of work when it comes to objective scoring, secondary objectives, primary objectives, and all that kind of jazz. And Synapse, of course, is normally a 6-inch Synapse range. He does have an ability to boost that, we'll go over that in a moment. And when a unit is within 6 inches of him, or himself, of course, he's also going to be within 6 inches of himself. When they're doing their Battle Shock test, they can roll 3 dice instead of 2. So for example, his leadership was a 7+, which is actually the average roll with 2 dice. But when you've got 3 dice, it's much easier to get 7, isn't it? So that's what that's all about. Now, he's got 3 unique abilities, which is pretty cool. The first one is Hive Commander, which is probably the best one out of the lot. At the start of the command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, you just gain a CP. The Necron guys know all about that with Imitate the Stormlord. The Swarmlord is the Tyranid version, which also gains CP. That is very nice. There's no restrictions on it. There's no, oh, you've got, when you've got the Hive Tyrant, for example, you can only do it on battle tactic stratagems and things, whereas this is just purely a CP. You just gain it. So you can kind of use it on anything you want. The Malign Presence is the second one, so once per battle after your opponent uses a stratagem, if this model is your Warlord and on the battlefield, which he should be your Warlord, you can use this ability, and if it does, until the end of the battle, increase that stratagem's cost to your opponent by 1 CP. Now this is one of those that has been nerfed, not recently anymore. When was this done? It was before, it was sort of November time I think, maybe even earlier than that actually. This only will apply to battle tactic stratagems, so you need to kind of check what your opponent has in their detachment. Also the core rulebook, there's a few in there that are battle tactic only, like the CP reroll for example, and you can make it more expensive by an extra CP, which is cool. So you're gaining CP with the Hive Commander, you're making your opponent spend more CP with maybe their best stratagem with the Malign Presence. The third unique ability is the Domination of the Hive Mind, which is an aura. This is what I was mentioning earlier when we were talking about Synapse. He actually has a 9-inch Synapse aura rather than a 6-inch because he's the big daddy of Tyranids. So yeah, that is the data card. Let's move into my tactics. Okay, so when we're talking about detachments, it's quite tricky with Tyranids. I'm not going to lie. When I'm using my Necrons, it's very easy to work out what detachment you're going to use is best in. With Tyranids, it's not so easy, and it's kind of because the Crusher Stampede detachment isn't very good, and a lot of our good stuff are monsters, so you'd instantly go, Crusher Stampede, but it's not always the case, is it? So for this one, I would probably go with the Index detachment, which is the Invasion Fleet, the Invasion Hive Fleet. Now with this detachment, first you gain access to the lethal hits or sustain hits, or precision hits, of course. I don't think you need that. You can use Epic Challenge. So you've got the options there, all game as well, which I think is a bonus. It's not the best thing for just a Swarmlord, don't get me wrong, but he does have ranged output as well as melee output, so you're going to interact sustained or lethal with all those different attacks. You've also got the method of getting critical hits on a 5+ with the Adrenal Surge stratagem. I think it's a little bit expensive, it's 2 CP, and he is probably not the best target for it, but for something else within your list, maybe you can find a better target. He's also bringing you CP in, don't forget, so it kind of does cheapen or make the stratagem cheaper than it normally would be. It's 2 CP, it gives you a CP, so it's kind of effectively won, isn't it? But more importantly, you've got access to the rapid regeneration stratagem, which will give him a 5+ feel no pain save because of course he's always within his own synapse. So that I think is probably one of the best stratagems available to the Swarmlord. He can't of course take the enhancement, so he can't give himself the feel no pain save, but there is a stratagem that he can do it with. So having the 2+ armor, 4+ invulnerable, 5+ feel no pain save, which again virtually pays for itself because he gains CP, and you're only using it when you need to use it, so you might even not need it in some of the battle rounds. But yeah, no enhancement options as he is an epic hero. Now in general usage, some people like to run him solo. I prefer to attach him to Tyrant Guard bodyguards, which I know it lowers the Swarmlord's toughness. It goes to toughness 8, so it's from toughness 10 to toughness 8, because you have to use the Tyrant Guard's toughness. But I just like having the extra defense with those Tyrant Guard. You've got potentially six toughness 8 models, 4 wounds apiece. They've got their own inbuilt 5+ feel no pain save on top of that. And not only that, they're going to be providing extra attacks, which is valuable because, as we already mentioned in the date card, although he is good, he's got 8 strength 9 attacks that are, okay, they're twin linked and they're damage 3. Does he kill an infantry unit with ease? Probably yes. Does he kill an elite infantry unit with ease? Maybe, not quite sure now. Depends on invulnerable saves and stuff. Does he deal with monsters and vehicles with ease? No. The easy answer to that. And when you've got the additional models in the unit with the Tyrant Guard, I think you've just got a bit more of a chance of clearing a unit. It might not happen in your fight phase, but in your opponent's fight phase, if they want to stick around, have another fight, that's when we'll probably clear them. Otherwise they are falling back, which means they're not going to be eligible to shoot, unless they've got an ability to do so. So it can be the difference between clearing a unit ready for your turn so that you can make a fresh new movement of 8 inches and then do a fresh charge into something else. You've also got the option of Epic Challenge because he's a character. So if you get into a unit that has a character or a leader within that unit, maybe it's a Necron Overlord with some Immortals, for example. Again, it could be Imitech. You use Epic Challenge for 1 CP. Again, he pays for it himself basically. And you go directly for Imitech the Stormlord. So now all of a sudden you've taken away the Necron CP farm by simply using your farm to pay for it, if that makes any sense. But yeah, Epic Challenge is available to the Swarmlord. There's also Rapid Ingress, which is something that I tend to forget about, to be honest with you. It's a very, very good stratagem from the core rulebook, which allows you to come in your opponent's turn from reserves. Just remember though that you're not going to be gaining any CP while in reserves. It's got to be on the battlefield, so you're going to miss out on turn 1, you're going to miss out on CP, potentially turn 2 as well if you go first. So, got to be careful with that one. But let's do some comparisons. What other units that are alternatives to having a Swarmlord within your list? Now the first obvious one is a Hive Tyrant, 35 points cheaper, more flexible with the war gear because you can select the war gear, and of course enhancement options because it's not an epic hero. You got Will of the Hive Mind, which does work on other units, so it's slightly restricted because of the battle tactic thing, and it's only within 12 inches as well, so there is slight restrictions, but it is a nice bonus to have if you don't have a Swarmlord. But there is an actual bonus to the Will of the Hive Mind as opposed to the Hive Commander ability. So the Hive Tyrant has a slight advantage in one aspect because, for example, the Adrenal Surge stratagem in the Invasion Hive Fleet is 2 CP. It's a battle tactic stratagem. So you could effectively do that for free, for 0 CP. Whereas if you're doing it with the Swarmlord, it's still 2 CP, but he gained you 1, so you've effectively just knocked 1 off. It's 1 CP. But the Hive Tyrant will make it 0 CP. So there's swings and roundabouts really with that. Obviously it's slightly worse in another way because it's only battle. Alexa, stop! Obviously in other aspects it's slightly worse because it only works on battle tactic stratagem, so yeah. He can also be taken with the Tyrant Guard as well, don't forget, so that's another option for the Tyrant Guard if you were to play that way. Some people prefer solo, run up the board, keep their toughness rather than lowering the toughness. Maybe it helps for precision, epic challenge and things like that. Other options, you've got Horospecs. I put Horospecs in here because if you're using your Swarmlord as a bit of an objective bully, then you may as well go cheap. 125 points for a Horsevex, another monster. Doesn't hit as hard, of course, because he's not got the strength 9 with damage 3, but the Swarmlord is more than double the points, and you could get 2 in fact for 250 points, so you'll in fact have some change back, because 250 points, 270 points, you'll have 20 points left over if you have 2, and I'd be still quite happy with 24 strength 7 attacks alongside 8 strength 14 attacks. So yeah, the Horsevex is no pushover, and I think I'd probably rather take 2 of them than a Swarmlord. In fact, going back to those Horsevexes, the extra attacks alone from the 2 Horsevex probably are better than what the Swarmlord does in melee anyway, because they're d6 plus 1 damage. So it's a minimum of 2 anyway, but you've got a very good chance of getting more, because it's d6 plus 1. But I don't think the Swarmlord is just an objective bully, he's a lot more than that. He's providing an enhanced synapse, he's bringing in CP, he's making your opponent spend more CP, as well as all the damage output on top of coming from a fairly tough model with the 2+ armor with a 4+ invulnerable save, and likely using the 5+ Fiona pain save stratagem if you're using that detachment. So there's a lot more to him than that. He isn't just an objective bully at the end of the day. Right, let's get into the part of the video where we've got to rate or hate the Tyranids Swarmlord. Now I know there are alternative options and he is quite expensive, but he does a lot of different stuff, not just the one thing as we mentioned at the end of the comparisons section. And I like him. I like the CP farming. I like the fact that he deals a bit of damage. He's not a pushover, he's durable. So yeah, for this video, at this moment in time, I'm going to be rating the Swarmlord.